Hello, Muhammad and today I will present my sociolinguistic project one. In this presentation, I will talk about two very fascinating linguistic phenomena that we hear almost every single day, which are code mixing and code switching. So let's get started. What exactly is code mixing? To put it simply, code mixing happens when a speaker is chatting away in one main language, but then they pop in a few words, phrases, or bits from another language into the exact same sentence. The clever thing here is that the speaker isn't changing the topic at all, nor are they switching the whole conversation to a new language. They just blending them together within a single utterance. Let's analyze the case from our assignment. Student says, aku lagi ngerjain assignment yang deadline-nya besok. This is a classic example of code mixing because the English words assignment and deadline are inserted into a single Indonesian sentence. Why does this happen? Well, it occurs because university students are highly familiar with these academic terms, making it quicker and more efficient to say. Sociolinguistically, the meaning conveyed is urgency, and it functions to show a casual, modern identity among peers. So, move on to code switching. What exactly is code switching? Unlike code mixing, code switching is when a speaker changes entirely from one language to another. This is usually happens across sentence boundaries, not just throwing in single words. This switch is normally triggered by a change in the situation, the topic, or the person they are talking to. For example, you chat with your mate in Indonesian, but when the lecturer asks a question, you switch entirely to English. It's a complete shift in code. So let's analyze the code switching case in this scenario. A student speaks Indonesian, switch completely to English to explain a concept, and then goes back to Indonesian for examples. This is proper code switching because the shift happens between sentences, not just single word. It's triggered by the topic. The student prefers English for formal academic concepts because the theories are written in English. But they switch back to Indonesian, for example, to make it easier for peers to understand. It functions to show academic competence while keeping the communication clear. To wrap it all up, both code mixing and code switching are absolutely brilliant and natural tools for multilingual students like us to communicate more efficiently in university. And just to remind you, the main difference is that code mixing blends words within the same sentence, whereas code switching shifts entire language between sentences based on situation or topic. So right now we move to part two. Jack, in this section, we are going to look at several real-life classroom scenarios and analyze them using proper sociolinguistic frameworks. For each case, I will break down what the phenomenon is, why it actually happens, and the social function behind the interaction. So let's dive straight into the very first case. Let's have a look at the at case one, which is about diagnosia in this about diagnosia. In this seminar scenario, a student uses formal Indonesian for the presentation, but instantly switches into an formal style when talking to their mates. Meanwhile, the lecturer stays formal throughout. This is a classic diglossic situation. We have two distinct varieties of the same language used for different social functions. The formal variety shows academic respect, while the informal one is for social bonding peers. It simply functions to show situational appropriateness. Uh, right now is cast 2, which is focused on code alternation. In this group discuss scenario, you can hear students alternating between Indonesian and English quite dynamically based on how their mates respond. Why does this happen? It's very natural conversational flow when bilingual speakers interact. They adjust their language choice on the spot to keep the discussion moving smoothly. It functions to balance complex academic ideas with personal comfort among the group. Case 3, which is all about style shifting. We see a student altering their vocabulary, tone, and sentence structure from very normal during presentation to completely informal ones. They are back with their close mates after class. Notice that they aren't changing the language itself. They are still speaking Indonesian, but the style shifts dramatically. This is completely driven by who they are talking to. It functions to signal professional respect when standing in front of the class, and psychological closeness once the academic pressure is off. Uh, let's have a look at case 4, which brings us back to code mixing. In this casual chat, a student says, "Aku lagi ngerjain assignment yang deadline-nya besok." As we discussed earlier, this is a textbook example of code mixing because the English words assignment and deadline are popped right into a single Indonesian sentence without changing the topic. Why do they do it? Simply because these academic terms are incredibly familiar to university students, making it much quicker to express. Sociolinguistically, it functions to show a casual, modern identity while highlighting the urgency of the task. Uh, let's move on to case 5, which focuses on code switching. In this particular classroom discussion, a student starts in Indonesian, switches completely to English to explain a concept, and then return to Indonesian for the examples. This is proper code switching because the shift happens across sentence boundaries rather than just throwing random words in. Why does this happen? It's entirely triggered by the topic difficulty. The student feels more comfortable using English for formal academic concept because the literature is in English. However, they switch back to Indonesian for examples to make sure their peers follow along easily. It functions beautifully to balance academic authority with clear communication. Let's look at our final scenario, case 6, which is all about dialect. In a diverse classroom like ours, students from different regions across Indonesia interact daily. Some speak standard Indonesian, while others naturally bring in their their regional dialect features, like unique intonations or local vocabulary. This variation happens because of their geographical background and first language interference. This doesn't hinder communication at all. Instead, it functions to show cultural identity and roots within the university. It's a brilliant reflection of diversity in the classroom. Okay, we finally reached the end of the presentation. To sum up everything we've looked at, all these linguistic phenomena from diaglossa and dialect, code mixing and switching are not errors. They are absolutely brilliant natural tools that multicultural students use to communicate effectively every day. They perfectly reflect our identity, both culturally and academically within the university. Thank you ever so much for your time and for listening today. And see you guys on the next project. Bye. Thank you.